Hi, this is Steve Bragg, and this video is about scuba diving in the Bahamas off of the Aquacat Liveaboard dive boat. And of course, the first place everyone goes is to see the seagoing pigs. And no, I am not kidding. These pigs are on an island pretty far south of Nassau. It's a long ways to get down there. This used to be a farm, and the farmer brought in the pigs and then abandoned the pigs, about 10 years ago. And so the pigs have been out doing their synchronized swimming routines on the local beaches ever since. So other people who want to come in and see them will chop up some apples and some pears, and the pigs will come out and you can feed them off the shore. So this is not really, I guess, what you call a dog paddle. Maybe that's a pig paddle. And you don't want to get too close because they could chomp your hand if you're trying to feed them an apple or a pear. So most people tend to just drop it in the water or try and drop it down their throats from a short distance away, which leads to a lot of misses, and the poor pigs have to keep circling around to get them. Now, those were the cute pigs. Now we come to the mama porker. And I guess you'd call this the porker paddle. This is a multi-100-pound animal, and you really don't want to get too close, but it's a very hungry animal, too, so it will pursue you for a chunk of apple, which in this case didn't work. And luckily, one of our younger divers, Hannah, picks it up and tries to chuck it in and misses yet again, but the pig is nothing if not determined and gets the apple, and then, of course, heads back to shore so she can munch on it. Now, there are a lot of people here who are feeding a lot of pigs, but some go a little further. Here is Melissa having a fine time competing with the mama porker for an apple. Or maybe she's just, I don't know, is that pig maybe a chick magnet? Because Melissa seems awfully happy until she gets sprayed right there. One of the things you will notice about these pigs is that when they're swimming out in the ocean, they don't like to get their ears wet. So you'll see this head sticking up out of the water with the ears kind of angled up. Ooh, good shot there with the apple. And the rest of the pig is submerged. And this one not only eats apples, but also models very nicely for an awful lot of photographers. There's the ship photographer and just about everybody else right there. And now we go back to the beach to pet the cute little guys. And there we go, petting, until here comes Mama and breaks up the scene. All right, enough of the pigs. Let's move on to more normal diving topics like Rice Krispies. What you can do on a dive trip is bring a bag of Rice Krispies down in a small plastic container and dribble them out so that the reef fish will swarm on you and eat the Rice Krispies. Works pretty well. It's not really too difficult to do, even if there's no fish inside initially. You throw a couple of these in the water, and they'll come from quite a distance pretty fast. It takes maybe 30 seconds. The only issue with doing this is some divers will go ahead and, obviously as I'm doing there, that's me, drain the plastic bag and then just chuck away the plastic bag and leaves the trash on the reef. So some of the dive operators don't even like to use them anymore, but you have to bring the plastic bag back with you. Now, one of the things the Bahamas is famous for is really good reefs. Here's a lot of soft and hard coral, and this is a pretty typical view of almost anywhere in the Bahamas. It's just beautiful coral, about as good as you'll find anywhere in the world. The fish life is a little on the thin side, especially when you have this many divers in the water, scaring them off. This particular video is of a mooring line which has had coral growing up all around it over the past couple of years. So you can see what happens if you put a man-made object down there and leave it alone for a while. And incidentally, if you're wondering how many people were on the dive boat, there were 27, and you can see pretty much all of them right there in the video. All right, let's get away from coral and pigs and move on to little fishies. Despite what I just said about not many fish being in the Bahamas, there are some schools. Here we have some very, very small, I guess I just call them food fish since everyone else eats them. And they're really mesmerizing to watch. You can just sit there and they'll zip around and act as one large body. And if you move in towards them, they'll shy away and kick around and do all kinds of neat things. And every now and then a larger fish will zoom through and take a bite out of this big school also. So sometimes in a dive you can just sit there and watch these guys and not do much of anything else. Or, of course, you can go for some somewhat larger ones. And here, that's me with a macro camera right over there taking a picture of things. And watching these somewhat larger fish zipping around obstacles, going around me, going around the videographer in this case. It can be a lot of fun. This particular school of fish was right next to the Blue Hole. This is not the Belize Blue Hole, which is the more famous, but it's still a fairly wide, fairly deep, well, it's a cave really, where the roof caved in years ago. Goes down quite a long ways. Not much there, but there's a lot of fish life up around the perimeter of it. So this is actually one of the better diving spots in the Bahamas for all kinds of different fish. And if you want to, you can go into the hole, but again, there's just not much there. Now, there are some smaller fish out there. Here we have some butterfly fish. They usually go in pairs. They tend to shy away, so we're fairly lucky to even get that close, and then off he goes. And then we have smaller fish. Believe it or not, right there in the center bottom is a filefish, maybe 2 to 3 inches long. You can see how well they blend in with the surrounding coral, so they're pretty hard to spot, and they're really hard to photograph. And also, once you start getting close, they start moving down into the coral, and then you pretty much can't get after them with a camera at all, and there he goes. Now, one of the more interesting fish is the trumpet fish, where here it's in the top center of the screen, a little hard to see, but as we get closer, you'll see it long, thin, and it's pointing horizontally. And usually they'll hang vertically so that you can't see them, but then they can go really fast if they want to find something to eat, like right there, which is not something you see very frequently. That's a rather lucky photograph section right there. And they'll hang upside down again, and then they'll kind of fade away from sight. Now, here's a blue parrotfish. We were really lucky to get this video. What he's doing is sitting there waiting for some cleaner shrimp to come along. And actually, they're on him. If you look very closely at the middle of the fish and a little bit down below the center, you'll see a little white spot, which is a cleaner shrimp. And what they'll do is work their way around the fish and even into its mouth to clean it off. And unfortunately, this parrotfish is getting nervous about us being too close, and so off he goes and he leaves the shrimp behind. Also, we have triggerfish. These tend to be pretty shy. They stay kind of far away, but it's a really beautiful animal. And this one seems to be a little bit more curious than they usually are. So instead of just taking off, he keeps turning around and looking back at us, and then makes the rather bad move of trying to hide under a rock, which of course doesn't do a whole lot, but you can see the very fine colorations that go on stripes down the sides of the fish. And then eventually he finally wises up and he takes off. Now, one of the more common fish is the queen angelfish. They're usually found chomping on the reef, as this guy is doing right here. Tends to be a little difficult to get close to them, and off that one goes. Here's another queen angel, and again, they're usually off eating, so in this case, we sneak up on him while he's doing that, and having an IQ of about 0.1, this one's not sure if he should go left or right, finally concludes that maybe left is the better option, and takes off to the left. There we go. Now, they also have stingrays in the area. Here's a real small one. This is maybe 1 to 2 feet long. It was backed up against the reef. Actually, it was up in the reef, which is a little unusual. And here he is fluttering along. They kind of huff down in there to blow away some of the sand, and sometimes you'll see it coming out of their gills. And in this case, he was not overly shy and got extremely close. Now, getting back to that blue hole I was talking about, the sharks will get into the grass off to the side, and it's pretty eerie. It's almost like there's a shark going through your backyard, at least if you don't mow your backyard. It's one of the odder things I've ever seen. I'll probably keep thinking about that next time I'm mowing my lawn. Speaking of sharks, here we are at a shark feed. Seems like most liveaboards always have one shark feed dive per week. And the way this works is you get a ball of fish and you stick it in the freezer for a while, have it clump up in that cylinder you see there. And a dive master takes it down. And in this case, we're on a wreck, and everybody in the dive group is hanging on to the edge of the ship, looking at it from a distance of maybe 15 feet or so. The dive master make sure everything is good and tight, and then gets out of the way. And you'll notice here that one of the sharks decides to go after the dive master's tank right there and bounces off. These can be a little boring after a few minutes, but essentially all you're sitting there doing is watching, anywhere from right here, maybe 5 sharks up to sometimes several dozen whacking away at this ball of frozen fish. And we'll leave you with a video of what turtles really do underwater, which is not eating or loafing around. It's actually scratching your back. So this guy was sitting there going, oh yeah, right there in the middle, a little bit to the left, and oh, that GoPro person's getting too close. I think I'll just bail out. And that's it. So hope you enjoyed our videos of diving in the Bahamas.